My name is Heather Horrocks. We came here in 1975 and we're here for about 20 years, and our kids were raised here. And I worked for the local federal MP eventually for 10 years. So I got to know the town very well. And then we decamped to Melbourne and Footscray, in fact, for another 20 years, a little more. And now we've been back for 18 months. I remember the barracks. That was always a very impressive part of Ballarat, and over the back of, and of course the Eureka flag. I always loved being on Bakery Hill because I was one of those people who sat down on the roundabout. Was it the roundabout? Certainly the intersection, to try and stop McDonald's from being built. It was an affront to most of us, really, and perfectly nice people. Peter Davies, who I got to know, and his wife later, wanted to put a McDonald's with the great big sign on the entrance to Ballarat, and we thought that was a bit outrageous historically and every other way. And Ballarat wasn't very good at that stage in the 70s and 80s in celebrating Eureka at all. Turned out that it became an iconic McDonald's, and they were quite proud to say that it was, they had renovated a building that would otherwise have fallen down. What we found out, of course, was that they probably couldn't have pulled it down had they wanted to, because it's all been mined under there, and the foundations may well not have. So they were better off, basically, renovating, and they did. I frequented Pico and Widmer because I'm an old dressmaker and textile person, and so that was the go-to place before Spotlight or Lincraft, and it was just a lovely, and it was one of the first places when we came back just 18 months ago. I thought, I'll have a bit of a wander down, and I couldn't even find, well, it's gone, but I couldn't. It was just a terrible shock to me. And then I discovered that one of the men who used to serve me fabric when I bought it is working, in fact, at Spotlight in Wendouree. And then I met Peter Widmer, who I certainly didn't know when we were here before, but he's part of the picture-making fellows, always been involved with. And I said, oh, that's an interesting name, which he wasn't all that keen on sharing because he had nothing to do with fabric or buttons or haberdashery. But we had a great old chat about that particular shop. Well, it was a perfect shop with very helpful people who had lots of boxes behind the counter of things that you might be interested in. So the display was mainly of fabric, as I recall. A lot more people made things in those days. It was very Ballarat. It was very polite and genteel and quality, really.
So yeah, buying fabric and making things would have been very different then, I suppose, to now.
Although it's coming back. More people are wanting to learn how to do these things. But it was mainly necessity. I had 2 little kids, and that was what one did. And in fact, I used to make my husband's trousers, which may surprise some people, but I did.
Fabulous. So it was in the mall, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Down near Walter Davies, I think, which was a place where you could buy Mother of the Bride frocks. I didn't frequent. I'm a 60s girl. I was slightly more hippie than Walter Davies could manage. When I went looking for Pico and Widmer, I wandered into a very nice decor shop to find these extraordinary beams staring down at me. So I said, do you know anything about this? And they did, and it was the Women's Christian Temperance Society's hall.
Wow.
Who knew? We could do something about that, really, couldn't we?
Yes.
The shops we used to go to, when we used to catch the tram out to the East High, it was a bit the same as going down used to go down to Sturt Street, then hop on a tram and go up Victoria Street as far as the orphanage, get off there and walk up to the East High, which was about half a mile, I think, just reckoning. And but we used to go through the Bridge Mill on the tram and up the hill. Oh, McDougall and Chisholm. Mum used to like going into all these shops for materials and bibs and bobs. She used to sew a lot. She used to make all our own clothes and stuff. and go in there, and they had these little things you used to pull.
With the money.
Yeah, with the money up to the office and send it back.
They didn't trust the workers with the money.
No, they didn't have tills.
No, it was all
No,
done.
it was all-
one single cashier.
Yeah,
Wires running everywhere. And
yeah,
little
it was
cylinders
cool.
popping up.
And wooden floors and the nice smells of the counters and all that sort of thing.
Where was that shop?
In Bridgemell.
Bridgemell.
And then there was a Crockers up opposite the City Hall, the Town Hall,
Yeah, Skirt Street.
where the bookshop is there now. Used to be Crockers, and it used to be the same.
Corner of Armstrong?
Yes. It used to have the same thing. All good fun.
It would be amazed at the people these days, or kids, have to see these things operating.
Yeah, yeah.
And any other shops?
There was a little shop over the road from one of those. It was in the mill, very small fronted little shop, and they used to have lace and ribbons and gloves and all sorts of little things like that. Can't remember the name of the place, but that was interesting. The next street up, was it Carthew's Delicatessen? Up there near Myers, is it Dufton Street? Just down from Dufton Street, a little couple of doors. And they used to have all the sausages and bits and bobs, all that nice smelling stuff that a delicatessen would have.
Well, I can see some girls dressed here that
In-
look like in football uniforms.
Yeah,
So can you tell us when this happened?
that would have been in 1961 or 62.
And the occasion?
A friendly match between Carnham Linton and Skipton. And this was Carnham Linton. Yeah, I'm there. Borrowed socks, borrowed boots, borrowed everything borrowed.
If I walk up further, there was Harry Davies. When I was going to school, boarding school, Mum brought me in. And the woman in charge there, I can't remember her name, but she was very stern and very proper. And we tried on the uniform, and it was measures. It was 15 inches from the ground, and we got the other thing. But then also I saw a lovely frock with a very full skirt and very big pink flowers on it with a blue centre. And I twirled around it and I took it home as well. And across the road used to be Menzies, and when I was in Teachers College I'd try on frocks there and put them on lay-by, and sometimes it'd take me a couple of months to pay it off because we used to get $15 a fortnight. It was our studentship allowance back then. And with the hotels, there were two hotels that were very popular. One was the George and one was Craig's. And the George was the one we favoured. Other people favoured Craig's. It was quite a split between that. And I remember once when I was at Teachers College, I was dressed up my best. I came down to meet my father and had on my high heels. He said, "Good grief, girl, you're high-heeled and hobbled today." And he took me into George's, and they had 4 courses that you had there. Beautiful ceiling and a very lovely old pub. And we were laughing and joking and talking away. And my father had to go to the toilet. And then the waiter came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Listen, lassie, I'd look out for those old sugar daddies if I were you." Another thing that was quite important was the Begonia Festival and the Begonia Parade. We all lined the streets and watched it, and for young girls, perhaps one of their great hopes was they might one day become Begonia Queen. And at that time too, I'm looking back here in the 1950s, there were dances at the town hall every Saturday night, And at Sunday, if you wished to, you could go to the one at St Pat's Hall. And I stayed at the Teachers' College in Webster Street at the hostel there, and we all rode our bikes up to Gilly Street to the Teachers' College there. There was only one man who had a car. He had an old Model T Ford, and he could pack a lot of the Beaufort House boys into that Model T Ford. And I have happy memories of Teachers' College, the lake area, and in school days, the head of the lake was on a Saturday afternoon, and it was a very big occasion. And then that night, you would go to the dance to celebrate whether you won or lost the head of the lake. They were very important things. But the gardens and the lake have always been very important to me. I live not far from the lake, and when the children were young, I'd walk them round the lake when they got cranky in the pram and sit under a tree and just let them watch the world go by. And then James learned was rowing. He rowed for Ballarat High, and then he had a yacht and he sailed on Lake Wendouree. And perhaps one of the clearest remembrance of Lake Wendouree I had was when it was dry, and we walked right across it, and I walked with James, and he said, "Listen, Mum, this is where we had to start rowing very fast here. This is where you put the pressure on," and moved on. It seemed very strange walking along the rowing track.